Hey, how you doing? Just a really quick one today. You're going to get access to one of the webinars that we've ran for our private community on this channel here. This webinar is designed to teach you how to get prospects to sell themselves to you. And this was a workshop that we ran. It was about 90 minutes long. We just cut it down to the core pieces so that you can actually get all the value that you need and start making more sales. So you're going to dive straight in because the recording, it lost 20 minutes of the front, but nothing too important. There's an exercise there that you can use to actually help you make more sales. So thank you so much for tuning in. Enjoy the webinar. I hope you have a blast. We'll see you in the next video. There's a weird thing where they try to handle your partner objection, which for me, we just make decisions in the household. And it's almost like a disrespecting of people's actual decision-making strategies. And what we're starting to notice, especially in the post-COVID era, is that our tolerance for that stuff has completely disappeared. And so people are craving a more connection-based relationship-based sales process. The other old way is pushing past objections instead of understanding them and treating them for what they really are. We have a whole workshop on this where it's understanding that objections are concerns that haven't been met. And when you see them as concerns rather than like these barriers that need to be busted, it can change your understanding of objections, because we understand that the core, what they're really saying is, I don't feel comfortable with this. I don't potentially trust that this is the right direction for me. And then the last thing with the old way is it's treating prospects the exact same way. It's painting everyone with the same brush stroke, when in reality, people buy different ways. People make decisions different ways. People have different value sets, and trying to sell everyone with a one size fits all is going to be costing us conversions. It's going to be costing us conversations. So the new way is authentic conversations guided by psychology. So what does that mean? It means that a sales conversation will feel like a normal conversation. You're not performing, you're not stepping into this salesman role. It's just guided by psychological principles. And that core principle is what we're going to dive into today. We call this cognitive dissonance. And it's understanding what actually drives a purchasing decision. What needs to happen in your buyer's mind for them to go, yes, that's the thing for me. Yes, that makes sense. Yeah, let's work together. The other part of the new way is trust building through genuine curiosity. And so that translated essentially means the better we are at active listening and the better we understand that the core thing that your buyers are looking for is to be heard and to be understood, then we're naturally going to build more trust. But in order to build that trust, we have to have a frame, or we have to have a mindset of genuine curiosity. We have to seek first to understand our prospects before we seek to close it. Understanding objections as information, not barriers. This is what we were talking about before, that the true nature of objections are concerns. And the reason why they don't speak the concerns is because they don't trust us enough to tell us what the concerns are. And so they give us surface level objections. They don't reveal the real cause of why they're not buying, which is, I don't trust you to deliver. I don't think I can follow through. There's a whole myriad of different fears that our prospects have beneath the surface that are not to be handled, they're to be understood. And then the other part of the new way is we adapt to each of our prospects' unique journey. And so if you got the playbook on day 5 of the fast track, the sales fast track, we talk about the 4 different buying personalities, which highlights people's different buying strategies, how they're motivated differently, how they make decisions differently. So the result is predictable sales through connection and clarity. And I love this quote here: you can't script your way to trust. And I think that really sums up what's changed in 2025 is today's buyers are really sophisticated. They've been pitched 1,000 times. We all can smell a bad sales tactic a mile away. I've been saying this for 10 years. It's even more true now that we can smell those bad sales tactics, and they can tell when you're following a formula. And so what we need is authenticity combined with psychological principles, which will create an unstoppable sales approach. Just going to check the chat really quick. Awesome. Maria says, yes, I avoid them. There must be bad sales tactics. Good. Okay, so let's get into our first piece of content. And so the primary question that we need to answer is, what actually is a sale? And the best definition of a sale is the gap between what your person is experiencing now and their expectation of where they thought they would be by now. And we also call this gap a problem. And my mentor used to ask me, this was 7 years ago now, he would ask everybody, every business owner, every salesperson, what problem do you solve? And the reason why I asked that question was because a sale is really a problem. And our buyers, our prospects, they all have a specific problem in the back of their mind that when we understand, is understanding why they buy. And so this problem is the gap between what they are experiencing in their current reality and their expectation of where they thought they would be by now. This is the definition of a problem. And what a sale really is an actual problem that somebody has. So we're going to go into an exercise in a moment just to think about what problem that it is that we solve. But this is the definition that we want to run sales through in 2025 is, what problem do I solve? What is my prospect's reality right now? And what is their expected reality that they thought that they would achieve by now? The technical term for this, and in all of our trainings, we refer to this gap between where they are now and their expectation as cognitive dissonance. And we break this state up into two parts. The first part is emotion, and the second part is logic. And when these two, emotion and logic, come together from what somebody is experiencing, the current reality, and their expectation, this is when they make a decision. So let me break that down into simple terms. If we think about sales training, for example, and the reason why a lot of us came to this call is, in this current moment, there is a logical experience that is happening in your sales conversations or your sales results. And there is an expectation of what you thought your sales results would be by now. And so some examples of that could be right now. Perhaps you're finding it really difficult to get prospects to open. Perhaps right now, your conversion rate on your calls is low. Perhaps right now, you're getting too many objections. All of these are logical or external experiences of the problem of sales. If we think about the expectation, your expectation would be, maybe there's an income level that you're chasing. Maybe there's an amount of clients that you want to be converting. If you were at 10%, maybe you want to be converting at 40%. Whatever that expectation is of logic, of goal-based thinking, that would be what we call a logical cognitive dissonance or a logical gap. Then on the other side of that, we have emotion. And this is probably the harder part for salespeople to do, or business owners to do, in a way that doesn't feel weird. But it's also really important that we have the emotional part of the problem understood as well, because without the emotion, there's no fuel in the decision. There's no natural urgency. And the experience of having only a logical gap, and we see this a lot in industries like insurance, anything maybe like IT, anything that is maybe service-based, very B2B, it's quite hard to put the emotion in there. And we call this logic to logic sale a sexless marriage. There's no spark, there's no connection in that sale. And so the emotions is how they're feeling about those logical outcomes. So if we think about low conversion, if we think about too many objections, if we think about can't get prospects to open up, how's that affecting the individual? How is that affecting the person? When we looked at the first slide, if you remember, there's a couple of problems here that we've talked about: the ghosting cycle and too many objections. So that's an example of logical problems. But then we talked about the feeling nervous before a call, the anxiety loop. That's the emotional problem. And so even inside of our training here, I'm writing in what the logical problems are and what the emotional problems are at the same time. And this is what we need to be able to do in our sales conversation, is understanding that when we have this sale, or when we're speaking with our prospect, we need to make sure we take a little bit of logic and a little bit of emotion. And it's much easier than you might think, because most salespeople just don't have a framework to start with. But the second thing is, they don't know how to ask questions in order to actually elicit that response. And so I'm going to give you an exercise in a minute. We call this the 3-island exercise, to help us figure out what emotions our prospect experiencing right now, and what is the future outcome that they were looking to experience. And so if we go back to our sales example, logically, the expectation for a few people on this call could be, I want to close more sales. I want to achieve a new revenue number. I want to have less objections. There's an emotional element to that as well. If you had those things, what would that mean to you? And so we talk about this in the playbook, where the question, what would that mean to you, is an emotional prime that creates an emotional response in our prospect, just as we change the end of the question. And so I'm going to give you a questioning technique today as well that'll also help that. But this is probably the most important part of the process that we need to understand today. And it's potentially the most uh, com- uh, complicated to get your head around to start with. But once we do the exercise, it will land with you a lot better. So let's get into today's exercise. Oh, just before we do, this is what we call, this is Eugene Schwartz, 5 stages of consumer awareness. And this is why selling this way, selling through problem awareness for our prospects, or cognitive dissonance awareness, is really important. Is depending on how sophisticated the marketing system is that you have, if you're in a high ticket sales position and you have lots of leads coming in, then chances are they will either have a good marketing system, which moves the prospects from unaware to problem aware to solution aware to product aware to most aware, or they won't. And for those of you that aren't aware of what the 5 stages of awareness are, is that this is the journey of our prospect when it comes to making a decision about whether or not to buy something. And so at any one point in the market, our prospects are at one of these levels. The first level is they're completely unaware that they have a problem. And so I'm just going to use the sales context because it's the easiest, and this is part of the difficulty in the marketing of sales training, is people are unaware of the problem of sales, which is not completely unaware, but I'd say a little bit unaware, that it's actually the first thing that should change. Because if we don't fix the sales training problem, we have a hole in the bucket and it's just leaking out. So it doesn't matter how many leads you put on the top. If we don't solve that sales problem, then it's just going to leak more out the bottom. And so we don't necessarily want to pour more leads in the top, because if there's a hole in our bucket, if our sales process is converting less than 30%, we're just wasting money. And so the first stage is to get people aware that, hey, sales is a problem. And then the second stage is, once they're aware of that problem, they don't know that there's any solutions. Then the third stage is solution aware. So at this stage that they'll probably start shopping around. They'll start looking for people that do sales training. It's at this stage where they jump on Google and they say sales training for insurance agents, sales training for coaches. And then in the fourth stage, they start getting product aware. So they've actually seen the influencers, they've seen the training, and now they're evaluating specific options. And then most aware, they're ready to buy. They just need that pushed across the line. And so when we sell with this cognitive dissonance, when we sell with this problem-based now versus expectation, we actually move our prospect through all 5 stages on the call. So when we elicit what's going on for them right now and their expectation, we make them, 1, aware of the problem, and 2, aware of the pain of the problem. And then as we transition to reverse selling, we make them aware of the solution and the product at the same time. And so most sales training doesn't, in the call, actually go through this process, because in order for the person to be aware of the problem and become problem aware, we have to balance emotion and logic. We have to elicit what's going on now versus their expectation. And so what we've also seen with selling through this cognitive dissonance process is that sales cycles tend to shorten because of the way that this is selling, because we're moving through the stages of the stages of awareness in the actual sales call. So we tend to see a shorter sales cycle. We tend to see more natural urgency. We tend to see higher conversions, not necessarily because we've done anything fancy with our skills or our scripts or our tactics, but because we're selling in a way that is structured and makes sense with psychology. So I'm just going to jump in and show you that this has worked. You guys might have seen Rick's story when you first jumped into the playbook. Basically, when I met Rick, he was a digital marketer. He was a remote closer for a digital marketing agency, and he had inconsistent sales performance with a ton of leads, and he was only converting 67%. So this was the leaky bucket scenario. We had a whole bunch of leads, just 4 to 5 a day. The company expectation of closing was really low, so they were only converting at 67%. And he was selling a $10,000 on average offer, but he also had $30,000 up to $100,000 offers as well. Within 30 days of deploying our process, he jumped up to $351K in revenue in 1 month and a 30% conversion on those deals, just by changing the sales process. The lead quality didn't change. He still had 5 appointments a day. He just actually had a process now that was working, and he converted those curious clients into leads. The result, he actually had to hire a personal assistant to manage the deal flow, and he averaged $250,000 in revenue across 12 months. And he became the top producer in his company. He eventually got promoted to sales manager and then exited and became a sales coach, and is now a colleague of mine. So let's get into the island exercise. So the 3 island exercise is a framework that structures your entire sales conversation. And what I want you to imagine is we have 3 islands. And on Island 1, this is our pain island. This is the reality of what's going on now. Island 2 is where we sit, we're the bridge. And Island 3 is where they want to be. And so if you've got a notepad now, or you can just create like a table inside of a Google Doc, or you can just write some notes and just imagine the islands on the page. What is the current pains, frustrations, consequences for your prospects when staying put? So when we looked at sales before, it was low conversion, too many objections, not enough income, etc. So what I want you to do now is I just want you to make a list of see if you can come up with 3 to 5 of the current pains that they're experiencing. And we'll just put, 2-3 minutes on the clock, and we'll do Island 1. So yeah, any questions to pop in the chat. But what we're doing for Island 1 is we're thinking about your prospect when they meet you. What are their current pains? What are their frustrations at their current situations? What are the potential consequences? I'll just set a timer for 2 minutes. If you have any questions or if you need some help, put your hand up. Actually, it might be valuable. I could do a hot seat with someone. Does someone want to jump on and we'll do the island exercise together?
I can if you want, Akila.
Yeah, Akila. All right. So let me just bring up a whiteboard really.
So you let me know when you want me to start and I will.
All right. I'll just bring up the whiteboard. Okay. So let's imagine that this is our island exercise. So we have our 3 boxes. Here are our 3 islands. We have Island 1, Island 2, Island 3. Now we stand on Island 2, and Island 1 is all the things that are going on right now for our prospect. Mm-hmm. And Island 3 is their expectation of where they thought they would be by now. So let's talk about what you're selling, and let's talk about your prospects and what they're experiencing right now.
Okay. As I said, I do consulting in AI or HR. I'm using AI right now. An AI plan for them to get from where they are to where they want to be.
But what would you say are the problems that they're experiencing? Why would they want to buy AI or HR right now?
I would say one of the problems is the fear of losing out. They hear all this hype about AI and what it can do for them, and they're not there yet for a lot of reasons. But one of the underlying stresses is if they don't get on it fast, they can ruin their company or have people leave or any of those things.
Well, this is really good. So we have 3, I would say, logical problems where there's a fear of missing out. They're going to have people leave and it would ruin the company.
And there's another one, is that if they start training their people too early, they're going to not have their skills a month from now because the AI field is changing so quickly.
Training too early, it's inefficient.
Mm-hmm. Costly.
It's costly. So on the other side of that, what's the benefit? What's the expectation? What would they like instead?
They want AI to improve productivity, the holy grail of companies. Some of the ones, they also want to keep the majority of their people. Some of them, of course, wants to get rid of many as they can. But, and they would like a solution to training their people to get them starting to move toward their goalposts, but not lose money.
Goalposts while staying profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. So what are we noticing about those answers?
Noticing about what, sir?
These answers, are they all logical or are they all emotional?
They're all logical.
Awesome. So this is really common, especially in your place as well, like in the place of HR or B2B consulting. Mm-hmm. There's no emotional part. So we haven't balanced the right side of the brain with these answers. And so as everyone else is doing this exercise, have a look at your answers. Are you noticing that there's a trend? Is there a lot of emotional problems or is there a lot of logical problems? And then just going through and just putting an L or an E next to it, making sure that we have a balance of both. So in this specific example, who are you selling to? Are you selling to the owner of the company? Are you selling to an HR director?
Usually to the CFO or the HR director, but mostly it's a C-suite person.
Cool. So you're actually in the tricky, emotional spot of how do we create emotions within the B2B sector. Yes. And so one of the things we've got to think about is the person in that position. So whether it's CFO, who was the other person you sell to?
I said C-suite.
C-suite. Yeah. Is we don't need a lot of emotion to make it effective. We just need a little bit. And so what I call this is a slightly advanced concept because we call this a third party gate. So a third-party gate is a way of framing a question that allows us to add emotion without
Mhm.
without sounding too direct. So we don't want to say
Mhm.
to the C-suite person, fear of losing out, people leaving, ruining the company, trained too early because it's inefficient. How does that make you feel? It's a bit
Mhm.
on the nose and it's a bit direct. So what we have to do in the B2B space is we create this third-party gate, which is like, the reason why we call it a gate is just imagine if we draw this little box and then we
Mhm.
put the emotion inside the box and we offer it to them. And
Ah.
so the way that we do that is we think about your clients that have been in their position. How has this affected them? So what would you say other clients have felt in that position? Say we're speaking to like a C-suite, business owner, CFO, etc. This is the concern they have. They're worried about people leaving, ruining the company, ineffective, costly training, missing out on the AI boom.
Yeah.
How would you say
They're
that?
feeling they're feeling uncertain. They're feeling vulnerable because if they're not making a decision, and the longer this goes on, the bigger an issue it'll become.
Right.
Yeah.
So what we would do in this scenario is after we've elicited the logical problems, we would basically share with them, say, hey, can I share something with you? They go, yes. And go, I've worked with a few clients in your position, and some of the things that they've said is this time feels really uncertain, and they're feeling a little bit vulnerable to all the changes that are happening right now. Does that resonate with you? And so what we've done is we've offered them the emotion that they are feeling within a safe environment, which is
Mhm.
other clients that I have worked with or clients in your position have said that they have felt ABC.
Mm.
Then we've asked, does that resonate with you? Now, as long as they accept that question and they go, yeah, that actually does track with what's going on right now. There's so much going, there's so much change. I'm so uncertain about what to do, etc. You're fine. You've activated at least a little bit of emotion.
Mhm.
That's the nuance for the B2B. If we were in B2C, it would be less weird to talk about emotion. We would go, you know, if your people are leaving and you're worried about it's ruining the company, training too early and inefficient, how's it affecting you? It's more appropriate to do that in the B2C sense than as a B2B. If we're in B2B, use this third-party gate. Clients in your position have said that they have felt ABC. Does that
Mhm.
resonate with you? It's probably the easiest, best way in a B2B environment to elicit some emotion. And on the other side, let's do the emotion on the other side, is if they did improve productivity, kept majority of the people, moved towards the goalpost and they were profitable, how would that affect them? How would they be feeling?
Yeah. Right. That they would be feeling proud of themselves for having made the decision to move forward. They would be feeling empowered because their company is empowered. They didn't have to lay off a lot of people. Um, they have moved towards their goalpost. They're on their way, if it's not totally completed, but they're certainly moving forward. So they are feeling confident and accomplished.
Amazing. You're actually one of the few people that I've done this exercise to that is able to language all four quadrants. So what you might notice as you guys are doing this exercise is one area might be more difficult than another. So we're getting a little bit advanced here, so I'll try and keep this short. Essentially, people can struggle with either logic or emotion, or they can struggle with the pain of problems or outcomes. Put simply, one of the islands is more difficult than the other for people, but you actually have a firm grasp of all of them, which is quite unique. Which means you actually have a firm understanding of the problem that you solve within the market. And chances are it's just you're potentially looking for a structure to be able to do that in a sales conversation to get them to convert. And so the very next thing that we're going to talk about is, well, now that we know the island exercise, how do I actually utilize this to make a sale? The island exercise gives us the sort of map or the framework of what answers we're looking to elicit in the sales conversation.
Mhm.
And we use basically the rule of three is during the sales conversation, you're asking them questions to just tick off some of these problems. Did they mention to you that they're worried about people leaving? Did they mention to you that it might ruin the company? Did they mention to you that they have ineffective training? Did they mention to you that they're worried about how AI is affecting HR? Did you ask them, are they experiencing uncertainty, vulnerability through a third-party gate? These are the kinds of things that we're looking for within a sales conversation to balance out to make that sale, as we want to tick these off through our questions, which is, Are you saying, are they profitable? How much profitable are we looking to make? Improve productivity. What kind of productivity? What does that look like? They want to keep majority of the people. What does that look like? So as long as we are asking these questions within our island exercise and we're ticking off at least 3 logic and 3 emotion, then we're doing a good job in the sales conversation. We're revealing that problem that we talked about in the first slide. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So whenever I have a sales conversation, I'll just screenshot. So you guys may have seen this model inside of the playbook already, but whenever I'm looking at a sales conversation, I'm visualizing this model, which is on the left-hand side, we have right now, excuse my terrible drawings, and on the right-hand side, we have the future or the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're breaking this up into logic on the top, emotion on the bottom, and logic on the top, and emotion on the bottom. And as you can see, we can just map the island exercise over top of this.
Mm-hmm.
And so all we're looking to do in the sales conversation is just ticking off, do we have 3 logical island answers for the problems of right now? And do we have 3 emotion? Now, in B2B, you don't have to hit 3 emotion. You just need to hit 1 or 2 because it's just more nuanced in B2B. But if you're selling B2C, you 100% want to make sure you get your 3 emotions. And so when this is fully ticked out, so if we just use a sales example because it's the easiest. So let's say someone says, I have low conversion, I have too many objections, and I'm getting ghosted left, right, and center, and I'm feeling confused. I'm anxious because I'm avoiding sales calls, and I'm just frustrated with the whole situation. That those answers, if I got from someone, would make me go, yes, I've achieved the problem state. Now I'm going to move to the future state. Future state, what are your logical outcomes? Just the opposite of the other one. So I want to have objectionless closes. I want to increase my revenue or my commission. And I want to have prospects say yes and pay in full on the call. Great. Okay. And what would that mean to you? Why is that important to you? I want to meet my potential. I want to feel proud of my results. And I want to feel confident and consistent in my sales process. Fantastic. Now, if I got all those answers, this would be considered a level 1 cognitive dissonance. I would be happy that I've now created or revealed my client's problem. It's because I have elicited the logic with the 3 logical answers, and I've elicited the future with the 3 logical answers, as well as the emotional sides as well. So just jump in chat, everyone. We went through this really fast. I'm happy to sort of do some coaching and some answers around here, because this is the core premise of what makes a sale happen. Once this happens, once we have this cognitive dissonance revealed within their mind, then it makes selling so much easier because we won't go and tell them what the answer is. We'll just ask them. So we'll say to them, if this is what you're experiencing now, what do you need from us in order in order to solve this problem? And then they will start telling you what they need. So this matrix here, locking this in and getting your 3 answers of the logic and emotion, balancing that left and the right brain, balancing the challenges of now versus the future expectations. This is what creates the buying response in our prospects. So let me know if you guys have any questions. Otherwise, the silence, I will assume that you totally get it. You're locked in.
I get it. And it makes perfect sense. I need to step back because my biggest thing is call reluctance. How do I approach? I don't know if this is part of this class. If it's not, just stop me. But how do I approach someone to take my call?
Yes. Probably a little bit beyond the scope of what we're covering today.
Okay.
I don't tend to specialize in outbound because it's just there's so many variables in outbound that it's really hard to have a concise teaching on it.
Okay.
What I've done for a client, or what I get my clients to do that are in outbound, is we would do some coaching around call reluctance. So what is the emotion behind the scenes that they don't want to experience? So rather than strategy for the call reluctance, what I would do is I'd look at what emotion is behind the call reluctance that they don't want to experience, and then I'd coach that emotion. So that's beyond today's class, but that would be how I'd answer that in a short form.
Thank you.
All right, so let's go back to now. So this is the balance formula, 3 emotional points. How do they feel about the situation? What's the emotional cost of not changing? What would achieving their goal mean to them personally? These are some questions. Now, if you have the playbook, we also have a whole bunch of of questions that you can use to elicit more of this response in your prospects, to get more of the, what do I actually say? And I'm going to give you a questioning technique that I use in pretty much all of my calls to help with this. There's also a script, I believe, inside the portal as well that'll give you some other examples of questions. So yeah, 3 logical points, which is, what are the measurable problems? What's the financial time cost of an action? What specific outcomes are they targeting? And so if you want to go really next level with this, so we talked about how creating that model was a level 1. There's essentially 3 levels of problems that we create. If we can create the larger the problem that we create, so the larger the gap that we stretch, the larger the price of the service that we can sell. So if we're selling a $20,000 offer, we need to make that cognitive dissonance really large. So we need to stretch it out. The way that we stretch it out is by using time as a consequence. So the example down here is to amplify both sides. If nothing changes, where will you be in 6 months? If you achieve this goal, what becomes possible next year? So we use time questions as a way to stretch the gap. And I'm not going to go into level 3 problem creation because that's way beyond what we're doing today. We're just trying to give you the framework and then teach you how to close based on that framework. But these are a couple of questions that I would also add once we've created that initial problem that I just did with Aquila. Is I would then say, if nothing changes, what happens to the company 6 months from now? If you did achieve this goal, what becomes possible in the next 12 months? So what this does for our prospect is it gets them out of this immediate problem thinking to consequential thinking, which stretches the gap even further. And then if we went to level 3, we would then elicit more problem and more emotion based on that next state. So, 6 months from now, how would that affect you? 6 months from now, what would the challenges be? So we go initial problem, stretch with time, consequences of the problem. And that's how we pull that gap out. So the bigger the gap, the bigger the things that we can say. Right. So let's talk about someone else who figured this out. This is one of my clients, Tim. When we met, he was a coach for men and he was undercharging, stuck on the inconsistent cash flow roller coaster. So he was doing like 3K one month, 6K another month, 3K, 6K, up and down, up and down. He didn't have a consistent process to convert his curious prospects into clients. And so what we did is we fixed up his offer. So we got him charging, I believe it was 5K, and we taught him the reverse sales method. And he converted, I believe it was half of his next 10 calls into about 40K in sales revenue, collected 16K cash within 60 days. So he actually had to build a new leverage program because he sold his one-on-ones out, and then 10 to 20K months are now predictable and expected. Okay, so let's move into now we've elicited the problem, or we built the problem with our prospect. How do we actually sell to them? How do we get them to buy from us? How do we trigger that response? And so the key thing here is there's got to be 2 parts. So we have the pitch and we have the handling of objections. And so there's a natural momentum that tends to happen in this reverse selling process that, I got a question from Adrian. I'll answer that in a second. There's a natural momentum that happens that you can feel when you start selling this way. So if you've spent the time to slow down and elicit the prospect's problem, they're going to feel understood. They're going to feel like you get it and you get them, as in you like, they go, oh yeah, I feel like you understand what's going on. Okay, great. Awesome. Yeah, no, that's all my problem. Yeah, cool. Thank you. So there's this natural feeling of understood. And so what we want to do now is what most people do in the sales part, what most people do in the part of the sales process is they go to rush the pitch, right? They chuck their product in there and say, you should buy this, buy this, and buy that. It's the least persuasive way to do it. What we want to do instead is we want to have 3 phases. The first phase is we want to get permission to pitch. The second phase is we want to summarize what we've talked about and confirm. And then the third phase is invite them to own the gap and ask what they need in order to solve the gap. So I'm just going to jump over really quickly to Adrian's question, and then I'll come back to this. So Adrian said, in personal finance, i.e. retirement insurance planning, how are we able to use time to stretch it? Usually people avoid doing that until something happens, or a few years down the road where they realize they should have done it years ago. Yeah, great question. So this is kind of similar to the B2B example in the sense that, like, if they don't get insurance, they're going to end up broke, or they might not have enough money for retirement, so they could end up potentially homeless. They could lose their assets. So there's a real consequence that we know that if we say to them directly is really direct, but we need to make them aware of that consequence without feeling so direct, if that makes sense. And so the way that I would do that is you could use a third party gate where you could craft specific stories about clients that it's gone wrong for. And so you could basically say, can I share a story with you? Yeah, we had this client, Greg. Basically, Greg was putting off getting insurance. And then unfortunately, worst case scenario happened for Greg, where he blah, 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 something about insurance stuff that I don't understand. But what happened was his premiums went up. He actually, it was a lot more expensive for him to get that insurance further down the road than it was to do it in advance. And we could also tie in other stories here where, and I cover more of this in objection class, which is, we call these linguistic seeds, but basically we use like real life stories or real life examples. So one of those would be, our brains are not very good at understanding exponential risk. So what we mean by that is clients tend to only invest in insurance when they realize that the problem is big. They don't actually, our brains aren't really good at mitigating that risk in advance. And so it's actually, I totally understand, Mr. Prospect, that it's difficult to see the value in investing in something now until the problem happens. So what you're really buying is problem mitigation rather than actual problem right now. And a lot of clients in your position have experienced that. And what I'd invite you to experience instead would be the peace of mind of knowing that if anything did happen, that you would be covered because of insert stories about clients that didn't experience that. That's a really waffly, wordy way to say is you could layer in different stories from client experience to the way that human behavior is, which is we're not really good at understanding risk over a long period of time. And if you're getting that objection, almost allowing them to have that concern and being human about it, knowing like, yeah, okay, it feels weird to invest in something that you sure might not happen for a few years down the road. And ultimately it's up to you what you decide. Here are some of the things that I've seen, some of the bad things I've seen happen, and here are some of the good things that happen. We had some clients, unfortunately, they had some health complications, and because they had this thing in place, they were able to experience ABC. And so you want to approach it indirectly by telling stories of either the consequences or the benefits of grabbing that service. Let me know if that makes sense. And I'm going to keep going. Yeah, great. I think the workshop, it's called Linguistic Seeding. It's inside of the portal. It's like $27. And I go really deep on how to craft these stories. We call them linguistic seeds to, to help overcome these objections. We call it objection prevention through storytelling, because when we tell stories, we tend to put ourselves in the main character position. And whenever you tell a story to someone, they put themselves in the story if it's well crafted. Yeah, that'd be how I'd handle that, is I would create strategic stories to not directly say, don't do that. I would say, these clients did that. This is what they experienced. And then it's up to them to decide what they want to do, because they have both sides. They have that, that's the consequence. That's the benefit. Reverse selling. Yeah. So let's jump back to reverse selling. Okay. So where this kicks in is we've just built our problem, right? We've just done our island exercise. We've asked them 3 questions of the pains, of the logic, of the emotion. We've done 3 questions of the future expectation of where they want to go, emotion and logic. And now we get into the pitch, which is based on everything we discussed. Is it cool if we talk about some options to help you get from where you are now to where you want to be? And the reason why we do this is Cialdini's law of influence and commitment. No stress. This is Cialdini's law of consistency and commitment. So we're stacking the yeses, because if we get a yes here, if we get another yes, they're more likely to say yes. And so it's also a respectful way to sort of say, look, hey, we're getting into the planning now. Can we talk about the planning and the options? And it creates a sense of momentum where these things start falling like dominoes. And when you've done this really well, you can actually feel the momentum moving towards the actual close. Step 2 is we summarize and confirm. And so this is where we go back and we say, okay, cool. So these were the problems that we noticed: low conversion, too many objections, not enough revenue, prospects ghosting you, and you were avoiding calls and feeling a little bit anxious. Okay, makes sense. And on the other side, you wanted to make another $5,000 to $10,000 a month. You wanted to have objectionless closes, and you wanted to get prospects to sell themselves to you without having to battle objections at the end of the call. Great. Did we miss anything? Okay, cool. So what do you feel like you need from us in order for you to get to that outcome? And then we let them tell us all the reasons. And I know this seems really simple, but this is only as powerful as the initial discovery part. So if we nail that initial gap stretching, this should take care of itself. It's like putting a rubber band between your two thumbs and pulling it out like this. Then when we have the tension at its max and we ask them, what do you need from us in order to close that gap? The tension's relieved because they relieve it and they start telling you. So either one or two things will happen. They'll start telling you all the things that they need, or they'll say something along the lines of, I don't know, that's why I was talking to you for. And that's totally okay. Don't stress if you ever get that response. It's just a cheeky little, we call shit test, where they're looking to steal the frame from you in the sales conversation, where your job is just to say, I totally understand. I have a plan. We have many different offers that we can take you through. But just so I'm super accurate, I just want to know, what do you feel you would need from us in order to solve this problem? And then 95% of the time, they go straight into telling you, oh, look, I'd like some accountability. I'd eventually like some training. I really like the one-on-one stuff. Like I'm the kind of person who learns better in a one-to-one environment. I like that bespoke nature of working together. And so they will tell you all of the things that they need. And so your job now is just to match. And you go, yeah, cool. I do one-on-one coaching. That's all good. Yeah, we can do some more training around objection handling. Yes, we can do some training around telling stories. Is there anything else that you need? And the beauty of this is they're now telling you all of the things that they need to solve their specific problem. And the reason why this is more powerful than pitching them a whole lot of services is because we can over pitch. I don't know if you've ever had this experience. I sure have, where I'm telling them all of the things that they get and they're like, but I don't want that. And so what we risk doing is, if we are pitch heavy, we over prescribe for the solution they have and we create more objections. So the more we speak, the more we offer, the more potential we have to create objections. Let me know if this part makes sense, because this is a key part of the whole process. If you have any questions, feel free to chuck them in the chat now or jump on the mic, and then we'll get into what happens after this. Assume that is crystal clear. So the next thing is, after reverse selling, one of the best things we can do, and this is the simple version of handling objections, is we call this reverse qualification. And this is, how do we overcome objections before they come up? And this is the simple version. The longer version I've alluded to is the telling stories, but this is enough right now for you to start making sales. If you build that gap, if you ask them what they need to reverse selling, and you do just these 3 questions, you'll eliminate most objections. And there's only really kind of high level ones that might be difficult, but in 90% of the cases, this will give you everything you need to make a sale literally tomorrow. Like if you follow this process, you do the island exercise, you ask the question, reverse selling, you'll make a sale tomorrow. And so there's 3 questions that I ask in general when it comes to handling objections before they appear. And so the first one is handling a time objection, so that people don't say, I need to think about it, or now's not the right time. What we do is we turn the objection into a question. And the biggest mistake with this is people overcomplicate the crap out of it. The magic is in its simplicity. So we simply say, instead of like, now's the right time to do this, we ask them, why is now the right time to do this? And then they will tell you all the reasons why now's the right time to do this. Then the second thing we look to handle is competition. And so why do you feel like we're the right fit for you? Or why would you not just continue watching free stuff on YouTube? So whatever objection that we have here, we can turn it into a question, and they will then tell us the answer. And then again, for the uncertainty objection, so this is really good for people that have been burned before, or the objection of, so it's kind of like a subtle objection, which is like, I don't know if I can do it. I would say under most objections, there's probably 2 major ones. The first one is, I don't trust you to deliver the outcome or the program. The second one is, I don't trust myself to deliver. And the third one is, I've been burned before. I would say those are probably the core objections. Everything else is kind of a flavor of that we're trying to drill down to. I talk about 13 of the major objections in that workshop. I don't know why that workshop keeps coming up, but it just does. Maybe it's the next one that we run. And so when we ask the question, how comfortable are you with change and committing to this process? So the question, how comfortable, is they're going to tell you how comfortable they are with opening up to some change, committing to transformation. And so what might happen at these stages is you might actually flush out a real objection or a real concern. And they might turn around and go, oh, I'm not actually that comfortable. Okay, great. Well, tell me more about that. What is it that's not clear? What is it that you're not comfortable with, et cetera, et cetera. Now, you might notice that we don't handle the price objection here, because the price objection is, we're going to go a little bit over, but the price objection is handled in 2 ways. The first way is, we want to create what's called a financial contrast frame. So a financial contrast frame is during the discovery, we create some kind of financial opportunity cost or financial consequence or financial gain to solving the problem. So if we think about sales, so this is how I do it if we're talking about sales. If you're converting at less than 30% of your calls right now, you're leaving money on the table. So what do I mean by that specifically? If you have a $5,000 offer and you're converting maybe 2 in 10 opportunities, there's at least 2 opportunities there that you should be picking up, because that would be a 40% close rate. So if your average sale is $5,000 and you're missing 2 of these opportunities a month, that's a $10,000 a month hole that is building. This is what we call the leaky bucket that we were talking about earlier. Then on the flip side, getting to a 40% conversion ratio means you make those 10. You make those 2 sales. So that's a $10K per month. Over the course of 12 months, it's $120,000 a year. And so what we do is we tell a story around the financial opportunity cost to build a financial contrast into the discovery, because price objection ultimately comes down to that's expensive compared to what? What is it expensive compared to? Because if we don't create that contrast in the discovery, what they'll do is they will compare it to the last thing that they purchase. So if they purchase like a $5,000 coffee, then a $5,000 program feels expensive. But if they have a $10,000 a month hole, suddenly paying $5,000 for a coaching program to solve that doesn't feel expensive anymore. And so this is one way that we can handle the price objection. The other way that we can handle the price objection is through, it's either an objection to the value of the program, or it's an objection to the logistics of what they have to invest. And so when it comes to price, people are thinking about only 2 things on the sales call, which is how much money do I pay today and how much money can I save? And they don't naturally tend to think about the future money they're going to get. They're only going to think about the money that they have in their bank account today. So when somebody says I can't afford it, what they're saying is, based on the money in my bank today, I can't afford it. And so that is when it shifts from a, do you believe that we can deliver, to a logistical thing that needs to be managed, which is we ask them, I say, so when you say you can't afford it, do you mean the whole amount? Would a payment plan help? And we go into that kind of logistical handling where we'd work out, we've got payment plans as well. Is there an amount that you would feel comfortable doing? But before all of that, is this, money aside, would you do it? This is probably one of my favorite questions, which is if I get that price objection, that's, it's too expensive, I would ask them, I'd say, if we took the money out of the equation, would you do it? They'd be like, yeah, great. So what we're looking to do there is we're looking to confirm, okay, cool. They see the value in the program and they trust that I can deliver. So now it's just a logistical thing. And I don't believe I'm digging too hard into the price stuff. Like if someone can't afford it, they can't afford it. I would never ask anyone to get a loan, to put on a credit card. That's not my place to say that. So I would just say, okay, cool. So if you agree that it's valuable, then would a payment plan help? And so we just break down that logistics for them. So that's the short version of price objection. Is number one, build it as a financial contrast within the discovery so that the problem that they have has a weight to it, has a financial weight to it. And then the second thing is understanding price objection, whether it's an objection to the value of the program and they don't believe that you can deliver or the program solves their problem, or if it's just a logistical. So let me know if there's any questions regarding this piece.
Thank you.
It's another one of my quotes, an absolute zinger that my old mentor used to say: we earn the right to pitch, and a great sale ends on a thank you, not a hard close. So you've done this sales process well, where the person gets through the other side and they're like, thanks, man. This is awesome. I'm looking forward to it. This is Eloise. She was a health coach, beat the binge. She was a brand new coach, struggling to convey her value to the market. She just couldn't get her prospects to understand, why should I spend $3,000 to $5,000 on this binge eating problem that I have? And so I trained her up in our process. She went through a wild run where she was an example where the marketing was dialed in and the offer was dialed in. So she had an 80% close rate of the inbound leads that she had over the course of the week. She made $40K in sales revenue using our sales code process. The result, she had to cut back on advertising due to the overwhelming demand, and she had to hire a salesperson to handle the volume. And she's now at 20K months. Okay, so let's move into some common mistakes. So we're going to wrap up shortly. We should be out of here on the dot. And these are some common mistakes that we would avoid. And also, I have a questioning technique that I'll share with you that I think is super powerful, that will help you in the process. Number one, talking too much. Pitching your solution before fully exploring islands 1 and 3. Silence is your friend. Let prospects think about it. So I've reviewed so many sales calls, and I would say probably the number one problem is the ratio of prospects answering to the salesperson talking, which feels weird because I'm on a webinar, I'm doing all the talking, but this is not a sales call. Where the best sales calls I've had is where the prospect does 70% of the talking. And so I just have these questions that are dialed in, that I'm asking, that I'm just curious to tell me about Island 1, what's going on, and just let them talk, let them tell you, so that they reach that feeling of, wow, this person gets it. They understand. They know what's going on. And you kind of want to get to a point where like you actually get it. So what I mean by that is there's this little thing that happens that I can't quite describe, but it's like this: when someone tells me their problem and I'm actually clear on it, it'll make sense to me. And it's the, can't remember who the law is from, but it's the law of transference, where it's when you feel like you get and understand their problem, they will feel like you get and understand their problem. And this is why talking too much is a big mistake, is because we miss the opportunity to just hear what's actually going on. The second thing is noticing that the person on the call is way too robotic because they're following a script rather than a framework like the island exercise. So with the island exercise, you can flow in the sales conversation without having to worry about what question to ask. As long as you're getting some of the answers, you're ticking off some of the boxes on that model, you'll be doing great. Then the last thing is handling objections right at the end, rather than addressing them as concerns or using the reverse qualification that we talked about after we presented the offer. So we've gone into reverse selling, then we've gone a couple more questions. Why now? Why us? How comfortable are you with change? And then we get into, okay, great. Is it cool if I share with you how we do this? And then we get into our pitch. So our pitch really is like 5 minutes at the end. It's here's the 1, 2, 3 things that we do, and this is how it would work for you. Oh, where's my question thing going? Oh, here it is. So this is what we call the CDE question pattern. And I think if you're going to take away anything from today, I'd say the first one is understanding the cognitive dissonance model, the gap between now and future, understanding emotion and logic, and then adding this one to the equation. So this is the CDE question pattern, where, I mean, like if there's one thing that I'll teach on every call review that I do, it's this, which is curiosity, defining what they mean, and elaborating. So let's just say that someone comes in, they say, I want to make more sales. The first thing I'd be, okay, interesting, curious. Then the second thing is, what do they mean by more sales? And then the third thing would be elaborate. So tell me more about what you meant by make more sales. Then the person would say, well, I'm closing 2 sales at the moment. A month, I want to close 10. Okay. And elaborate. What would 10 sales do for you? And so let's do another example. Someone comes in and says, I'm getting too many objections. What do you mean by too many objections? Curious, define. Okay, cool. Too many objections means you're going to go think about it. Now's not the right time. People are ghosting you. Okay. How's that impacting the business? How's that impacting other areas? So we elaborate. And by doing this, what you'll notice whenever you listen to a call is people will give you everything you need to make the sale. Chances are we've been so focused on trying to rush through and focus on a script that we've missed out on the opportunity to be curious and define what they mean. They're going to tell you all of the things. And you probably had this experience where you've jumped on with a salesperson and you've been like, this is my problem, and this is what's going on. And then they've gone, where would you be 12 months from now? Just, it's so disjointed, rather than going, well, tell me what you meant by ABC. Okay. And how's that affecting the business? How's that affecting you? How's it affecting other areas of life? Be curious, define, elaborate, and we'll save you as like a Hail Mary. Like if you ever get stuck in a sales conversation, just revert to the CDE. Okay. You mentioned you needed to make more income in the business. You wanted to be more profitable. What do you mean by profitable? How much profit? By when? Okay, cool. Tell me more. So the CDE question pattern is super powerful. It's like in my back pocket the entire time. And so the quote here, sales isn't about getting someone to say yes. It's about helping them to see what's already true. When you guide with the curiosity instead of pushing with persuasion, prospects naturally move towards a decision that's right for them. And where the decision is a yes, it's a confident, committed yes. And so, yeah, this is my CDE question pattern. Curious, define, elaborate. Any questions about that before we move on? And I believe it's the last piece of content we have today. All right. So let's recap what we did in the last hour. So we revealed the true nature of sales, that it's not persuasion, it's closing the gap between the prospect's reality and their desired expectation. You learned about cognitive dissonance. It's a powerful psychological principle that creates natural buying intent when prospects recognize the disconnect between where they are and where they want to be. You learned the 3 islands framework, It's a proven method for guiding prospects from pain island through to awareness to their desired island where they're ready to buy. And you learned our permission-based selling, reverse selling method, how to ethically ask for permission at every step, building trust instead of applying pressure and getting prospects sell themselves to you. So when you apply this process, you'll see why prospects start selling themselves to you naturally. And so, like I said at the end of the call, there's 2 parts forward. There's no real pitch here. Number one, you can go away, you can implement this stuff on your own. You should have enough here to actually start making sales. You'll get there eventually. It takes time, trial, and effort, errors along the way. The path is free, but it's slower. You can figure it out through repetition and course correction, or you can get some help from me directly. I'm opening up a couple of calls in my calendar where you can just book in, have a demo. We can see how it works selling your product. It's completely free. So if you want to book a demo call, you can. I'll be sending out an email after this just with the link to my calendar. You just fill in 7 questions. We'll talk about whether or not this process is for you and whether or not you want to implement it. And that's today. I'm happy to open up to any questions about our process. We got another couple of minutes here. And yeah, that's it.
Can I say thank you very much? That was really good, but I have to go to another meeting right now. So
No worries. Yep. Thanks for tuning in.
thanks.
Awesome. Thanks, Adrian. Got another 3 or 4 minutes here. So if you want to jump on, you guys can, and we can walk through your sales process, ask me any questions, get some help. Otherwise, I'll see you in the emails. Thanks for being here, everybody. We'll see you in a few weeks for another webinar on objections. Bye for now.